When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, before we get into the video, I wanted to add a little bit more into this after I'd already got done recording it and all that. And I wanted to say some of the things I say in this video, correct, are not out of like a tone of I don't want people of minorities and stuff like that to be in movies and stuff like that, or TV shows or whatever. I think there should be more inclusion of that, right? But at the same time, when you look at what Lord of the Rings came from, what it was inspired by, a lot of it was kind of brought to you by like Celtic mythology or history, Norse mythology and history, and then Anglo-Saxon type stuff as well. So when you look at the eyes of where Tolkien wrote these novels, he was kind of only going off of kind of white people's history, because that's kind of what these books were based upon, those type of history type stuff. If you look at the same thing with Song of Ice and Fire, there are certain elements of A Song of Ice and Fire where they're built upon histories and stuff like that. And I also wanted to say that the people that are saying that Tolkien is racist, or people that like Lord of the Rings are racist, is kind of stupid in my opinion, because if you look at the narrative story of Lord of the Rings, we have a lot of race issues built into Lord of the Rings, as in the elves don't like the dwarves don't like the elves, right? And this is something that Tolkien makes very big on, that this was really dumb, and it actually worked against both of these groups, and it was, they shouldn't have these race issues. It was very wrong, right? It was built upon the fact that if these groups had been together a lot, they could have overcame a lot of, enemies very easily and a lot quicker, right? Not had so many issues. And we even see this with the men as well within the story, where when it's talking about like outsiders or people that, men don't have that much relation with, like hobbits, like elves, like dwarves, like all these, they're kind of prejudiced to these kind of cultures. And again, Tolkien shows us kind of why that is wrong, and why if these groups had all been united, things like the threat of Sauron could have been dealt with a lot easier, right? And that's something I just wanted to touch on at the beginning of the video. Because I know this video is going to get a lot of hate. It's the third time I've recorded this video, so I've put a lot of kind of thought into how I wanted to phrase the way I did this review, and that is kind of how I wanted to start with this. And I hope you guys like this video. If you don't, tell me why, civilly. Tell me why you disagree with maybe what I'm saying. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoy the video. All right, hello YouTube, welcome back to the Grease Goblins YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about The Rings of Power, the new show that is about Lord of the Rings. It's going to be from Amazon, and it's been a show that's in the making for many years of just them, I guess, trying to put stuff together. I don't know. This show's been in talks for years at this point. And we finally got the first kind of teaser trailer like a week ago or so at this point, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. Now, for reoccurring viewers, let me know if you guys would like to see this Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth, all that content, or no. I mostly do A Song of Ice and Fire content if you are new to the channel, but I wanted to kind of give this just kind of my own little thoughts about it. I have a lot of thoughts about this trailer and this show in general, and I want to put it in this video. But before we get into the video, if you guys would like to like, subscribe, and comment for more of this type of content, please do help channel reach other people that might like this content as well, and let's get into it. So the first major takeaway that I took away from this teaser trailer is, if they didn't say at the end of the trailer or whatever, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, I would have had no idea this was Lord of the Rings. It doesn't look anything like Lord of the Rings. Like, the elves don't look like Tolkien elves. I have no idea what was going on in this trailer. If I didn't have to go to a secondary source or something like that and read the article, I would have legitimately no idea what is going on. Like, nothing is told out of this trailer. There's no exposition, really. It's just random nonsense. And my biggest problem with this is, I understand what they're trying to say is that, oh, this is, in the past, it's a younger point in history or whatever, in the Second Age, right? Which, again, they don't say we're even in the Second Age, I believe, in the whole trailer. But Galadriel and Elrond look a lot younger, which doesn't actually make any sense, because this is they're thousands of years old at this point. And also, elves kind of mature and kind of reach their top, I guess, puberty or whatever at like 50 to age 100, in that range. So this doesn't make any sense looking at where their characters end up being in the Lord of the Rings. So I'm kind of confused as to where they're going with this. I don't know if they're trying to say that this is its own series. We're just saying kind of screw the Peter Jackson movies and screw the books. So we're just kind of roughly looking at them for background context, I guess, or the general story, because from what I can tell, they don't care about the source material within this trailer so far. Okay? There are a lot of inaccuracies within this trailer. Like I said before, I want to start with the elves. The elves just don't look like elves. Elrond looks like he's in One Direction. I mean, let's straight up. Okay, and then you got this other guy who he's got like a military like haircut, basically. Like it's frustrating. Okay, because Tolkien has one of the most detailed universes in probably fantasy in general, right? He's someone that heavily inspired George R. R. Martin when creating Westeros and stuff like that. Now, I think he has just as good of a detailed universe as Tolkien does. And the fact that they're making and creating all this new stuff that was not in the books, it had nothing to do with the books, very much worries me. Because the other thing that worries me, something that we saw with the Game of Thrones that was a big problem, was the directors kind of compressing a bunch of material into one season, or compacting stuff and cutting other things out. Because when you do that, your story falls flat, for the most part. There have been a couple times where that's worked out, but like, put it this way, right? You know, Game of Thrones Season 5 was basically 2 books combined into 1 season. That went terribly. It's something I talk about on the channel a lot. It was, to me, the reason Season 5 and the rest of the show failed, besides them running out of content. My problem with this is, this show should have everything laid out perfectly. They don't need any other content to be written. There's nothing else that needs to be... They have all the source material they would ever need for this show. And the fact that they're compressing thousands of years. I think this is, what, 3,500 years? I'm thinking... into, they said all of the Second Age is supposed to be happening at the same time or something. They're compressing it down to one time, which is odd because you had a lot going on in the Second Age. You had Sauron rising, Sauron falls. You also have the Witch King taking down Numenor and all that stuff happening in the Second Age. Like, the Witch King taking out the kingdoms in the West is something you could do an entire show on. And the fact that you're doing the rise of Sauron with the Rings of Power and all that, then you have to take down Sauron. I feel like this show might get rushed. I hope it doesn't, but it's giving me those vibes. It's just... And then we haven't even gotten on to some of the other problems that I have with this trailer and more of the show in general, is this whole idea that I feel like they're very much pushing an agenda. I think they're trying to push this whole idea of not individuality, kind of feminist kind of stuff, alongside of kind of this whole racial thing where they're trying to put in a bunch of, you know, minorities and stuff like that, which is fine. I think we do need more minorities in certain movies and stuff like that. But when you're adapting a show that was made, or the books, you're adapting the books that were made in the 1930s/40s, it doesn't make any sense. Tolkien, when he wrote these books, was looking at other points of history to kind of reference into how he created his whole universe. And there are parts where you can put in these minorities and stuff like that and create really interesting stories, where if you look at Mordor, right, there's this kind of race that lives within Mordor that they're not really orcs, but they're other kind of beings, right? And you could have them being, you know, if you wanted to bring in, you know, people of African American descent and stuff like that, and have this compelling story where you could talk about Gondor, you could talk about these, you know, clans or whatever that live in Mordor, and you can kind of tell that dynamic and not have it be a good versus bad thing. Maybe Gondor did something that was bad to them, and we see kind of that, how that all goes into it. And you can make the Gondor, which we had always thought of being really good, actually be a little bit morally gray, which would be really cool. It's something that I really love about A Song of Ice and Fire, is that it's not good versus evil. It's, you know, you have that gray line. And we also then look at the dwarves. They show the dwarven princess, right? And she's African American, which again, in this universe, I'm sorry, is not canon. It is just, it's just not a thing. And then you also don't give her the beard either, which we have multiple quotes. There's a bunch of canon that dwarf women look very similar to dwarf men, right? You almost can't tell the difference because they all have beards. And we just said, no, we're just breaking that trend, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just weird. It doesn't look like Lord of the Rings, doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings. I really don't even know what this show's going to be about for the most part. I know it's on the Second Age. I don't know what the main first season's going to be based upon, really. For the amount of money Amazon soaked into this show, it's off to a very bad start. Because what we've had a common theme of in the last, I would say, few years is all of these bigger companies getting a hold of these franchises that are very beloved and kind of dividing them. Right? I used to be a very big Star Wars fan, and I still am a Star Wars fan to some, degree, but the sequels just destroyed Star Wars. I mean, I don't even consider those movies canon at this point. Like, they just don't exist. Right? But then there's other things right now where I like Mandalorian. That's pretty good. Book of Boba Fett was not the best. Let me know if you guys would like a review on any of that stuff in the future, but Book of Boba Fett, I did not think was the best for a lot of reasons. We're not going to get into it in this video, but yeah. And I think that is what they're doing here, because another thing is Galadriel was never this warrior type character, and it just doesn't make sense to me why she would be now. And they're also saying that Galadriel is this vengeful type of person, and it's like, Galadriel's been alive for thousands of years. Are we really going to say she's still vengeful at this point of her life? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's this whole thing where you had Galadriel in the main story was a very strong, like, female character, right? Where I don't know why you change her. She's still, like, she is described as being one of the most powerful characters in all of Middle-earth. And we made her this, like, warrior princess kind of role when that's never what her powers were, right? If you wanted to make Galadriel this type of character that is part of, the grander way of taking down Sauron, have her use her actual abilities. Right? Like, why are we having Galadriel be this warrior princess type thing? And then another thing that I'm going to have some interest with is when the Rings of Power do come out, right, and Galadriel is given one of these rings, are they going to follow that? Because Galadriel, they had to hide the ring from Sauron, right? That's kind of what they did. And if she's wearing it going into battle against someone like Sauron, like, it's just... I'm trying my best to not completely destroy the show already before it's even come out, but they are giving me so many signs of they do not care about the work of Tolkien, and they're just saying, we're going to make our own story off of loose plots that in the books, and we're going to kind of just get a cash grab from people that like Lord of the Rings. That's what this feels like. Right, because every show or every universe has that kind of vibe of where you know what it is, right? So when you watch any Game of Thrones spinoffs from now on, if you look at sequels, anything like that, how do you kind of know what it is? Because you know it's kind of a political show, it's based in realism type stuff besides dragons. Dragons also a kind of point of it as well, in this morally gray area. And Lord of the Rings always had that kind of high fantasy type stuff where you have these middle, orcs, and you have these, traditional elves, the long hair, the long bows and stuff like that. You have these dwarven characters. Tolkien was really the first person to kind of invent the orcs in a way that's kind of copied by any other fantasy now that kind of uses orcs and stuff like that. And Peter Jackson was the one that really gave us the first real inkling of what an orc was on screen. So you look at all of these things and how much source material that you really have, and I just, I'm not a fan of how they're creating so much new stuff when you have so much already? Let me know what you guys think on this, if I'm crazy, if I'm just looking way too far into this, or if I'm just going along with the media, because I've seen a lot of YouTube videos that are just destroying this thing, which I think so far is rightly deserved, right? This has been a abysmal start to a show that has been very highly anticipated, and I will still probably give this show a chance. I'll watch the first few episodes and see if I like it or not, but it's not off to a good start. Something that I was very much anticipating, just not there for me. And yeah, I don't know. I think from what I've seen so far, Amazon really missed the aesthetic look of what Lord of the Rings is. A lot of the scenery that they had didn't feel like Lord of the Rings. A lot of the characters didn't feel like Lord of the Rings. None of it really felt like Middle-earth to me. And I feel like that is a very common feeling amongst a lot of the people that enjoyed Lord of the Rings. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys all later. Bye, guys.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.